What's up, YouTube? And welcome to my pickups video for the month of July 2020. A couple things about this month that made it a little bit different than the last few months is I actually got out and traveled a little bit at the beginning of the month. Took a well-needed vacation, did a very socially distant, driving-heavy vacation to the state of New Mexico, which I'd never been to before. So I got to visit Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and kind of all the stuff in between. Made a big trip out of it, drove through the rest of Missouri, Oklahoma, went through New Mexico, came up through Colorado, looped back through Kansas, and then back to my home state. So got to really get to see some cool game stores along the way. You're going to see probably the biggest variety of hodgepodge in this video of any pickups video I've ever done. Really good game hunting, especially in Colorado. I want to give a special shout out to Emperor Fox, who gave me the lowdown on some great places to hunt in Colorado, of which there's really just still, in 2020, a ton of independent game stores. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to see a lot of different games for a lot of different systems in this video, as well as a bunch of accessories and other gaming-related stuff this month. Much more so, probably variety-wise, than my typical videos. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with a Turbografx 16 game that I got on the trip. This is Moto Rotor, and I actually owned the sequel to this, which is PC Engine exclusive, called Moto Rotor 2, for a long time, and expected this to be pretty good. It is a top-down racer, kind of RC Pro-Am-ish in nature. What is unique about this one is it supports the Turbo Tap, so all 5 players can play at once with this. That does create many gameplay problems in that the game will actually slow the screen down so that all 5 racers can remain on the screen at the same time. Probably due to the limitations of the hardware or this being a pretty early Turbografx game. I wasn't really that impressed, and I actually went back and played my PC Engine sequel, and I'm not impressed with it now either. So maybe just nostalgia is not looking over this one so well. But if you like this one, you can let me know. Ultimately, my first impression wasn't so hot. I did get one PS1 game this month. Again, system I've kind of really gotten to a point where I've got most of the stuff I wanted. But this is one that stuck out. This is Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix. And so I got the first game in the series a couple months ago and figured I should probably get the sequel, as this is kind of one of the well-known PS1 games, especially for what it did from a graphical perspective for the system. So I think the game holds up well. I've started it just a little bit. This is a 4-disc game, so there's a lot of FMV and stuff like that in the game as well, but looking forward to playing this one a little bit more. Didn't get any real PS2 games this month, but I got a couple things that are for or compatible with the PS2. And what I mean by that is these are a couple more of the early Laserdisc arcade games that were then brought to the PS2 as a playable DVD. So these were not licensed by Sony. I showed one of these last month, but these were by a company called Digital Leisure, who is still around today, and basically they ported these games again to the PS2 or Xbox or just your DVD player. You can play it on any of these with the DVD remote. This is Drug Wars. This is a game I was always interested in. It's the sequel to the other FMV light gun shooter called Crime Patrol that we did get on the Sega CD. This one only came out on console, as far as I know, on the 3DO, and I don't have a 3DO anymore, so this was actually very nice to play on the PS2. The game is a little bit laggy. You can't obviously use a light gun, so you have to use the controller, but the over-the-top drug scene, cutscenes and things like that of this are really funny and well worth the price of admission. Got this one actually brand new sealed on eBay for just a couple bucks, so if there's more of these out there, I would highly recommend picking this up if you're into cheesy old FMV video games like this. And then another one I got that was much more interested in is Hologram Time Traveler. And this one's a little bit unique in that this one was based on a Sega arcade hardware, although the actual game was created by the creator of Dragon's Lair. So very unusual hologram 3D perspective game that had this very unusual arcade cabinet that I have played in real life. Only 2 games came out for that arcade cabinet, but unfortunately this is the only one that got a DVD game translation. So this one is pretty unique to the format and is one of the more expensive of these titles. This one also is kind of neat in that it comes with a set of 3D glasses inside the case. So you can play it in a pseudo 3D mode, or you can just play it in a rendered for DVD mode. But if you're interested in these types of cheese, again, this is one that I would highly recommend. Has a lot of behind-the-scenes video and making-of stuff with retro news footage and things like that really make this one a lot of fun. So I might actually get more of these. There are a surprising lot of these FMV to DVD translations out there. I would say there's probably about 15 total that actually came out. So interesting to pick up now that I know these are out there, but grabbed a couple more this month and on top of the one I got last month. We'll look at some Sega stuff next. This first one is one that I just grabbed very cheaply at a store along the trip. This is Double Dragon for the Master System, cart only, which is not really that exciting. However, this is the blue label variant of the game that is considerably rarer than the original release. This one came out as kind of a late release Master System reissue to reissue some of their earlier titles that were more popular. So kind of like a proto greatest hits, although they weren't labeled that way. I'm not sure if the artwork for this game is any different. I might be able to just get the box and manual for Double Dragon and pop this in it and therefore have the variant version. But at least I got the cartridge, and I do kind of think the blue labels are a little bit cool looking. Much more interesting than that is a Master System game that I got from Europe. This is one that we did not get here. This one took a very long time to come in the mail, but I'm happy it is now here because it's a lot of fun. This is Line of Fire, and this was originally a Sega arcade title, but this one is loosely based on the title with some of the same characters and storyline, but the gameplay perspective is very different than the arcade game. This one plays as a top-down run and gun, but why I really wanted this game in my collection is this has a secret feature that isn't even advertised on the box, in that it advertises, or that it works with the Sega 3D glasses for the Master System. And I played it in 3D mode this month, and it is fantastic. It has some really cool graphical tricks. I think this is technically the final game that ever came out for the Master System 3D glasses, and you could tell the developers just had a bunch of fun probably putting this one together, even though probably very few people were playing with the 3D glasses at that point. So as a 1991 release, very unique that it supports the glasses, and sad that this one was a Euro exclusive because it's really a great game to play. Can highly recommend this for anyone who's into Master System stuff. Another game I got this month that I'd been looking for quite a while. It doesn't go for a ton of money, but it's a difficult one to find in decent condition. This one is not mint by any means, but it is Jaguar XJ220 for the Sega CD, and this is one of the early cardboard box release games. What I find interesting about this game is a couple things. This was developed by Core of the UK, who really saved the Sega CD in its early days. They put out a lot of the software that came out for the system that wasn't developed by Sega. And ultimately, I find it interesting because the Jaguar XJ220 is probably one of the more failed supercars of all time. If you're a car guy, this car was promised to be a V12 engine with turbochargers and all-wheel drive. And by the time it actually got to release, multiple years overdue and over budget, it ended up being a V6 turbo with rear-wheel drive. So ultimately, all the hype that this car had really was all for naught. And frankly, I think the car's butt ugly. Of all the supercars that were available during that era, there's no way I would pay to have this over a Ferrari or Lamborghini of the period. So very interesting that this was a star car deserving of its own game. It has some of the other supercars of the era as extra players in the game, but they're not playable, and ultimately they didn't pay for the licenses of them. So the only licensed car in the game is the XJ220. So anyway, a little bit of interesting trivia about this one. Next, let's move on to some NeoGeo Pocket Color games. This is a system I've been very actively trying to complete, or maybe complete the set. I'm thinking about it, let's put it that way. I did get a loose cart for the system. This is one that I ultimately want to get complete, but I was tired of getting outbid on it, and got a very cheap cart-only copy just to actually get to play the game. So this is Puzzle Link 2. Very fun puzzle game. There's also a Puzzle Link 1 for the system as well, and highly addictive. I really got into this. I played it probably much longer than I expected to, so very happy to have that, and ultimately would like to get both of those games in the series complete in the box. Two games I did get complete in the box this month are both sports games, and actually this is a system you don't want to shy away from the sports games because they're pretty great. This one is Pocket Tennis Color. Has that wonderful artwork on the cover, same as the Japanese version. This one is a very playable tennis game for the Pocket Color. It's no Virtua Tennis, I will say that, but it is just nice and cheerful with the character art, and I think compared to what else was out there for tennis games, it holds its own pretty well. The one I like even more than that is this one. This is Neo Turf Masters. Pop that back in. And this is a game that I've always enjoyed once I got turned on to it very late in the game. I did have a Japanese version of this one and ultimately decided I would like to have the US version just because I like the cardboard boxes we got a little bit better. Don't ask me why, because the Japanese ones are 10 times as durable, but I do find these interesting. This one is also extremely addictive. I am not a golf fan at all, like even much less so than a tennis fan, but I can play this game for hours. It is super addictive, easy to pick up and play, and I would say is a very accessible golf game, just like the arcade Turf Masters was as well. So very happy to have that one for the Neo Pocket Color. I did get a couple Microsoft-related games this month. First one of these is Final Fight Streetwise. This one's actually a little bit difficult to find, I think, on the Xbox, as well as the PS2. There's a PS2 version too. I did own the PS2 version prior. I decided that I would rather own this on the Xbox, so I sold that copy off this month. I got this one really cheap and kind of just filled the hole with this one. It is not great, but one thing that goes into this one, making it a little better, is it does have the arcade Final Fight as an unlockable once you play through the game a little bit. So nice to have this for the Xbox, but not really something I would highly recommend if you just want to play it. And then for the 360, I got a game that's just kind of been on my back burner list. I didn't really see it as essential, but I decided to grab it again this month because I saw it cheap on that Roadtrip. So I got the Dreamcast Collection for the Xbox 360, and I find this to be a very unusual compilation. I don't know if they were planning on making more of these and they just stopped at one, but as far as if you want to pick 4 games that really highlight the Dreamcast library, I don't know why you would choose the 4 that they went with. So let's recap here. We've got Sonic Adventure, makes perfect sense, accessible to all, and obviously Sonic's a well-known character. We've got Crazy Taxi. I probably would have gone with Crazy Taxi 2, but Crazy Taxi is obviously another landmark game in the Dreamcast. And then it gets a little weird. We've got Sega Bass Fishing. Popular, but I don't really think that Sega Bass Fishing is a game that's as wide of appeal as the other ones. And then the weirdest one on this pack is Space Channel 5 Part 2, which I do own on the Japanese Dreamcast, but the reason I own it on the Japanese Dreamcast is it never even came out in the US, so we just got the first game in the series. I find it very strange that they chose to put the sequel on there, but I guess it's kind of an interesting reason to get this, is if you've always been curious about that one and want to play it for much cheaper than it would cost to get the original game on the Dreamcast. It is much better than the first, so if you've always judged the game based on the first game, please don't. Part 2 has a lot of redeeming value, but that's all you get for your money, is those 4 very randomly selected games, in my opinion. So nice to have this. I mean, I like the artwork with the actual Dreamcast console on the cover. I don't think you typically see that on these types of compilations, so at least they try to do something a little different. Next, let's move on to some Nintendo System games. First one of these I'm going to show you is for the original Game Boy. This is a system I was thinking about going for a full set. I've kind of backed off because I've got just about everything I really want to play, and so it's just filler that I would need to finish the set. But this is one that's been a problem for me to find at a good price for a long time. This one has gone up a little bit in price. This is the real Ghostbusters. It's one of, I think, 3 Ghostbusters games on the system. And again, for some reason, this one spiked in price, and I never could find a deal on it. So finally, I got a good price on it, decided to go ahead and grab it, and just something else to add to that Game Boy collection. One that I have been playing much more than that is this game for the GBA, and this is Moto Racer Advance. First of all, I don't like collecting GBA games loose, but this is a game that is incredibly expensive complete, and even loose has really shot up like crazy lately. Why is a motorcycle racing game one of the most expensive games on the Game Boy Advance? Because it is a system-pushing marvel. This game really, really will show off what a Game Boy Advance can do. It looks beautiful, and it plays so smoothly. I'm not even a typical motorcycle racing game fan. I usually like car racing games, but this game had me completely hooked, and it looks so good. If you get the chance, please try this game. Don't have a bias against motorcycle racing game, and I think you will really enjoy this, especially if you just want to see the power of a Game Boy Advance. Keeping in mind it was a 32-bit system, but probably didn't really show that off in so many cases. So would love to have a complete copy of this down the road, but for now I'm just really enjoying playing it. For Gamecube, I got a game that I really was looking for on the PS2. I'm hoping the Gamecube version is the same title it looks to be from the box art, but it may have some slight differences. I'm not sure. This was released here as Roadtrip. Ultimately, this is a part of the Koro Q series of games in Japan, and I saw some recent footage on the Retro Pals channel of this game as a car PG. on the PS2, and it looked pretty interesting. So ultimately fell into the GameCube version before I could even find the PS2 version, and looking forward to checking this out soon. I just haven't had time with some of the other stuff I've been playing. Did get a couple games for the Wii. First one of these is one that I used to see all the time, real cheap. I just never picked it up. It's one of the games that is compatible with the Wii Zapper, so ultimately it's like a gallery shooting game, and that is Wicked Monsters Blast. This was not put out by Maximum Family Games, it was put out by Falcom, but ultimately it seems to be a pretty obscure budget title type release that now is starting to really spike in price. So got this one again on my road trip. Happy to get it off the list because this was one of the few Wii games that I still wanted, but I ultimately have not had a chance to play it yet, so looking forward to checking it out soon. The other thing I got for the Wii is a curiosity that I again stumbled on this road trip. Not something I normally would ever even think to chase after, but it really struck me as I haven't seen that before. I should probably go ahead and grab it. And that's Lego Batman the video game with DVD of the original Michael Keaton Batman movie included as a bonus. I can't imagine they made a whole lot of these. Weird repackaging. If you really think about what that means is you're putting a DVD in with a game into a system, the Wii, that can't even play DVD movies. It is completely incompatible with that system. So you would still have to own a DVD player to even be able to enjoy the movie that the game comes with. I don't know if there were more combo packs like this that were released, but this one ultimately is very strange. They did actually do these on, I think, the PS3 and 360 also, which is okay because you can play DVDs on those systems. But ultimately this one is just very strange. So I decided to grab it. Little side note, I never had seen the original Batman with Michael Keaton. I've seen probably all the other Batman movies that came out, but for some reason I just never saw the original. So very weird to see a 30-plus-year-old movie with fresh eyes that probably everybody's seen a million times. And ultimately it's a pretty weird movie, but glad I finally had the experience of checking out that movie as part of the series. So not going to be playing this game. It's not something that interests me at all, but definitely wanted to have this for curiosity's sake. I think it's just a weird variant for the Wii. Whether that becomes rare down the road, time will tell. We'll see. Last game I got this month is this is a total Trojan horse purchase, but this was also part of my road trip. It was something I saw in a store, and I figured I just had to have it. If you've been watching my recent videos, you know I've been chasing after NeoGeo CD games a lot, as well as NeoGeo Pocket Color games, but I haven't made the jump yet to move into AES or MVS collecting, and I know that's a very slippery slope, so that's why I've been cautious, trying not to do that, but now I own an MVS cart. This is Spin Master. This is a fantastic Data East platformer. I've played this game a lot in the arcades. I really think it looks very cool, the style of it, and unfortunately the reason I had to get this version on NVS is there is no CD version of this game, and it makes me sad because I think this game would look great on the CD. But now I have an MVS cart, and I'm sure the next thing I will be getting is probably a one-slot MVS unit so I can play it in my candy cabinet. And then I start down the slope of MVS cart collecting. Yay! But I'm not hating on the system. I absolutely love it. I'm just trying to think financially that's a very scary system to get too deep into. So watch my decline in the future with that step. Another SNK thing I got this month, moving on to accessories now, is a NeoGeo Jelly Bean joystick is what I've heard it called. It's basically the second generation of the original NeoGeo joystick. It does work with the NeoGeo CD, which is why I bought it, but this will work with your AES system also. It's got the same plug. This actually is surprisingly a great joystick controller. It is much lighter than your average fight stick, so it's very easy just to hold on your lap. You don't have to have it on a table. It has the trademark wonderful clicky joystick on there. And what I like about it is it has this concave top to the joystick, so you can actually rest your thumb on it and just use that as almost like a directional pad with the clickiness. The buttons feel a little cheap. That would probably be the only thing I say lets it down a little bit, but very happy to have this. And I saw this in one of the stores in Denver and just decided, when are you going to find one of those in a store again? That's a very unusual thing to not have to buy on the internet. So very happy I grabbed this. I've been using this a lot more than expected with my Neo CD this month, and ultimately if I ever do go down the AES route, I'll be good to go with one joystick at least to start off with that system. So very happy to have that, and it's been getting a lot of use. Next, let's talk about a PS1 accessory that probably won't be using anytime soon, but just happy to have in the collection because you don't see it too often. This is the original PS1 official link cable. So what this lets you do is link two original PS1 systems together, but they have to still have the link output on the back of the system. The later revisions of the system, they did away with it. So you would need two early run PS1 systems to work this, plus two TVs, plus two copies of the game, and there's very limited games that actually work with it. But I always thought it would be a cool curiosity, and I got it for a couple bucks. So if I ever go down the road of having all the necessary equipment to be able to even use this thing, I'm sure it'll be fun to have like two Ridge Racer games, or two games, a game of Ridge Racer going on two TV screens. That's what I'm trying to say. Or maybe some of the other compatible racing games. There are quite a few that actually support this. So nice to have this weird PS1 official accessory. I did get a official Dreamcast VMU this month in green. I'm starting to play my Dreamcast stuff a lot more and realizing like all my VMUs were full. So I got another one of these. I think I had one green one already. This one was nice to get though, just because it still had the original cap on the top. Most of them you see have thrown that away a long time ago. So just another good way to save my games for my Dreamcast collection. If you watched my recent video, I did a video on how to mod a NeoGeo Pocket Color Japanese Slim model. This is that one that I modded. So basically, ultimately, I've got a new screen for this within the last month. But what I wanted to show in this video was where that went from there is I got my dream NeoGeo Pocket Color. So one of the reasons I bought that last system is because I couldn't find the one that I really wanted to own, which is the blue camo NeoGeo Pocket Color. I think this is one of the coolest color schemes offered on any system ever, and it perfectly fits games like Metal Slug. So very happy to have this. I found this in Santa Fe, New Mexico in a very cool retro game store there. Nice staff, and ultimately they were excited to sell it because don't see a lot of people into the NeoGeo Pocket Color stuff. What I have done to this since I got it, though, is I've also done a screen mod on this one, too. So you can see it playing the tennis game, and the screen on these looks so good now that you've done the mod. One thing I regretted about the Slim was the mod was a little difficult to fit into the casing, but if you look at the side-by-side, the Fat has quite a bit more space, and it does fit much more nicely. So the mod was quite a bit easier to do on this Fat system, and I would recommend that if you're looking to do the screen mod. So hopefully you enjoy a little bit of the footage there, what it kind of looks like, but I can tell you I've been playing this a lot, and really just happy to have the system that I always wanted in this color scheme. So very cool to have that. What that means, though, is I'm now up to 3 NeoGeo Pocket Colors, 2 with the mod, and then 1 other Slim system that is still in its original state, the one I've always owned. So I don't know if I need that many, but for right now I got a lot. The other weird thing I found on the Colorado trip was the NeoGeo Pocket Color Worm Light. And ultimately, this would have been a savior for me up until a month ago when I started doing all these screen mods with the backlight. This is a overhead front light that was much more popular on the Game Boy Color as an accessory, because that system also was not backlit or front lit. Worked very good in a pinch to give you some lighting to play the games in the dark. This is a much, much rarer accessory for the NeoGeo Pocket Color, and it also comes with like a rechargeable battery pack and an AC adapter in the box too. So ultimately I don't need this mod, or this accessory anymore now that I have the backlit screens, but it's kind of a cool piece of NeoGeo Pocket Color history, and this is actually sealed in the box. So I'm just going to leave this sealed in this condition and keep it as a part of my collection. But it's kind of sad I couldn't find one of these 5 years ago, 10 years ago when I really wanted one. They just had disappeared. So interesting to find one of these now, but won't really give me too much use anymore. One other thing gaming related I got this month is the pretty new Blu-ray Deluxe edition of The Wizard, and it's from Shout Factory, and it comes on this really cool 8-bit graphic custom art cover that comes with a slipcase. And then reversible art, you can flip this around to go back to the original movie poster cover. Very interesting Blu-ray. It has like 40 minutes of deleted scenes. If you thought that the family drama in that movie was already too much, how about 40 minutes more of that that you can watch that has nothing to do with the fun Nintendo stuff that everybody actually watches this movie for? The second disc I haven't got into yet, but I know there's like an interview with a former Nintendo game counselor. And I think that's kind of an interesting interview to check out, considering there was some footage of the Nintendo game counselors in the movie. So Not a classic by any means, but definitely essential to people of a certain age that grew up with this movie, and I'm happy to have this in my collection, an upgrade from my bare bones DVD version that I've had for several years. I do want to show a new magazine addition to my collection. So if you watch my videos, you know I like collecting old video game magazines. This is a 90s magazine that was completely not on my radar at all, and this is called Game On USA. It is a subsidiary of Game On, the Japanese magazine that also existed during the same time. Its whole claim to fame is it is very heavy on Japanese-developed games for the U.S. market or import games. So if you think that Game Fan's pretty hardcore with what they covered and very Japanese-centric, I would say this is even more so, in that they didn't even want to cover games that American or European developers created. It was more just what's out there from Japan, we want to cover that and focus on that in our issues. The other thing that makes this magazine very unique is about half the pages are devoted to game-related manga. So basically the way it works is there are 2 ongoing series as part of every issue, and like I said, about half the pages are devoted to that. So ultimately you're reading more of a comic than a video game magazine. The first issue, this is issue 1, volume 1, so the very first issue has Cammy from Street Fighter on the cover, and ultimately it has a Cammy manga that runs through several issues as well. So very cool artwork on these. I like the cover and just kind of the layout of the magazine. I wish there was a little bit more actual game content in them, but I think these are pretty cool, and they completely flew under my radar. So ultimately I got 4 of these from the same seller. Another one I got is this one with Haomaru from SNK's Samurai Showdown. And this one also has a Samurai Showdown manga that runs through several issues. The other thing I think is cool about these is they did a lot of tours and interviews with game developers. So this one has a visit to SNK USA, RIP, and kind of just some cool interviews of the period with that. So very nice to have that one as well. This one's probably my favorite cover of these. It is a Final Fantasy VII cover with Cloud riding a chocobo. And this one had a cool tour of Square USA, which was actually very new at the time to California. Ultimately, the game that they were discussing with the developers that wasn't even titled at the time this magazine went to print was Parasite Eve, the original. So it was kind of interesting to hear some of the developer perspective on that game that was very hush-hush at the moment. But this one has just some nice, like I said, Final Fantasy VII artwork and assorted stuff about Square, as well as the ongoing mangas from some of the prior issues. So nice to have that one too. And then the last one of these, I think they're out of series now. These aren't straight in order. There were 7 issues total, and I got 4 of them. This is a Virtua Fighter 3 cover. It has an interview with Yu Suzuki, the game's ultimate creator. And then there's also an interesting tidbit about this particular issue, is this is the very first issue in newsstand paid print for Chris Kohler, the well-known underground, well, I don't say underground, but Japanese-centric, magazine writer and YouTuber. I don't know if he YouTubes or not. Anyways, he's around at the cons. He does a lot of stuff with Kotaku, or at least used to. I think he just left. But this is the very first thing he ever had in a printed magazine outside of fanzines. And it said he was a junior in high school, actually, in the issue when he submitted his article for it. So very interesting beginning, and I guess a nice historical piece for that purpose. But really liking these, and I think I want to track down the other 3 issues if they're not too difficult or expensive to find. Alright, I know it's been a long video, so we're getting close to the end. The last thing I have for you is a stack of manuals. Ultimately, I like getting manuals for a lot of my old games, and I found a lot on my road trip. So let's go ahead and go through these. First one of these is Mega Man Extreme for the Game Boy Color. There were 2 of these. This is the first one. I'd like to get a box for that one ultimately. This was the heavy hitter of my manual selection. I was super happy to find this manual for the NES, and that is for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, a very, very rare and difficult game to get. Why I was so excited to find this manual is I actually have the box for this one and the cart, so this one is now complete. A very, very difficult game to find complete, and just very happy to have that complete after probably 20 years after I got the box. The rest of these are, a lot of these are NES manuals, so let's look at some more of these. This one is Amagon by American Sammy. Interesting artwork on that one. Nothing special here. 10-Yard Fight by Nintendo. We've got Heavy Shreddin', which was a snowboarding game. This is the Bard's Tale, and it has kind of like a little insert inside of it. It's not quite a map, but it's just kind of like a, I don't know, quick start guide or something like that for the game. Nice to have that. This one costs surprisingly more than I thought it would, but this is Donkey Kong Jr. I guess just because it's Nintendo, but ultimately just, I think one of the last Donkey Kong games I didn't have the manual. Sorry about the cut. Had some weird technical difficulties with my camera, but continuing on with NES manuals, we have Arch Rivals, a basket brawl. This one has some cool artwork. This is Flying Dragon by Culture Brain. And then, moving on to some other systems, I have a manual for Psycho Fox on the Master System. This is a pretty unusual system to find loose manuals for, and I had the carton box for this, so nice to have that complete. A couple Genesis games I was able to complete is Gauntlet 4 by Tengen. This is the original press of the game. There's also, I think, a black and white manual version of this also. But nice to have this one complete. And then Gadget Twins, which is a kind of kid-oriented shooter. Very colorful game, but pretty simplistic. I got a manual for a game I got the cartridge on N64 last month. This is Rocket Robot on Wheels. It's nice to have that one nearer to complete. And then the last thing I got is a system manual for the second version's Sony PS1 system, the Slim. So didn't have a box or manual for my system, but now I'm halfway there at least on having that complete as well. So that, I think, does it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.